Relaxation and the one point, the magic pot. Why should we relax? Compare a freshly cut branch of a cherry tree and a dry one. The dry one is not as flexible as the fresh one. The dry one is stiff, but the fresh one is not. The dry one breaks under pressure, but the fresh one endures, and when the pressure is gone, it returns to its original shape. Now, which one would you like to be? A tense, brittle one, or a relaxed and flexible one? We cannot take tightness and tension all the time. Just as a bow kept strong loses its power and usefulness, so does the human being. We cannot stand constant and continuous pressure and tension. It is easy to relax when in a resort of some kind, looking at the scenery, calm ocean, and enjoying it. But if we want to relax just when we are at a resort or a vacation spot, we would probably relax not more than 1 or 2 times a year. Meditation helps us to get to know ourselves from within, not through seeing the reflection of our physique in the mirror. There is more to us than just what is visible. After all, not every beautiful thing is filled with beauty. So we have to shape both inside and outside. It is essential to be able to relax both mind and body wherever and whenever the need arises, whether in the busy day-to-day life of ours or a sport activity, test, or any other circumstances. While it could be difficult to relax when busy, some people cannot relax even when they are at a resort or in a suitable environment. These people are highly nervous and get tired easily. Children or adults, often before an exam, tense up and find themselves unable to answer questions which they could answer under a normal circumstance. Some athletes, before an important game or meet, tense up and perform poorly. All these are because all these people don't know how to relax. Most people feel it's impossible to relax when some big event is taking place, because they are under the illusion that when one is relaxed, then one is weak. But the fact is that the properly relaxed is the strongest state of our being. People don't know how to relax, and they think they cannot. To relax means to be at ease and leave everything in their natural state. We can relax if we settle everything at their proper places. The proper place for the weight of upper body to settle is the small point in the lower abdomen. Why? Because the weight of all objects are naturally underside. It means that if you pick up an object, its weight is at its lowest point. That is why when you let it go, it falls down. You could call it gravity if you wish. Your upper body is also an object. Therefore, its weight would naturally be at its lowest point, which would be at a small point in the lower abdomen. We call this the one point. If a man does not know where his home is, even if you tell him go home, he cannot. So if you don't know where to settle your strength, even when we tell you to relax, you cannot. When you're trying to relax but don't know where to settle your strength, then your strength remains somewhere in your body. If you try to relax your shoulders, the stomach becomes tense. If you try to relocate the strength to relax the stomach, then the head becomes tense. Therefore, some part of the body is always tense, and so you cannot relax. Since mind and body are originally one, and there's no dividing line to separate them. Therefore, to coordinate mind and body, they should both be focused on the same point, the one point in the lower abdomen. Why? Simply because we know that the weight of our upper body is concentrated at the one point and is not on our forehead, as most pictures of people concentrating, such as this tattoo or pictures of Buddha, show a spot on their forehead. If the point where the weight of upper body is concentrated was on our forehead, then the weight of all objects should be on their upper side and their highest point, not at their lowest point, which would be underside. Therefore, with that assumption, all objects should be suspended in the air, not fall on the ground if picked up and let go. So the weight of our body cannot be concentrated at our forehead, where our head or brain is, but our mind can concentrate where the weight of our upper body is concentrated, the small point in the lower abdomen. In this way, we do have one concentrating point for both mind and body, as they are one, since there are no dividing lines separating the two. This is also the same point where we could concentrate upon when we meditate. There is an old story about a magic pot. A merchant goes to town to sell an old pot. People complain why the price of the pot is so high. Because, he says, this is a magic pot and can disappear whatever you put in it. People started putting many things into it, and sure enough, all of the things vanished as they were put inside the pot. We too all have such a magic pot in the one point in the lower abdomen, where mind and body is coordinated. This is an infinitely small point which can also engulf everything. For example, even if someone spreads false rumor about you, you need not lose your temper. By throwing your anger away into your one point, you need not do something heatedly that you would later regret. Nor do you need to repress it, which only means the anger will come out later. If you absorb your anger, irritations, and disappointments of day-to-day life in your one point, you can truly vanish them and be rid of such cumbersome emotional baggage. If you truly practice in this way, even if lightning strikes beside you, you will not be shaken up by its sound or its flash of light, since they will instantly be absorbed in the one point and extinguished. If we meditate and improve our one point by focusing on it during our everyday life, we should be able to maintain a properly relaxed state of mind and body. We will develop a mind that would be immovable even if the world around us collapses. And we shall have a mind as vast as the great ocean, which we can engulf everything and remain unpolluted. So we may be confident that by having trained our mind and body to be coordinated and practicing keeping one point in our meditation, though many habits, ideas, or unsuitable proposals or situations are thrown at us by the society we live in, we may remain immovable, unbeatable, disciplined, loyal, responsible, and honorable by doing the right thing and not accepting things as they come to us, but choosing them as we see fit and proper. According to the recent medical reports, 80% of modern diseases are due to nervous system problems. Stresses, irritations, anger, and depression make the fine veins contract and disturb the manifestation of the life power, the key, causing various diseases. We should lead a happy life not by switching and changing things, including our spouses or jobs, But by practicing keeping the one point in the lower abdomen, relaxing completely, therefore activating the highest life power, and thereby keeping away all diseases. Unfortunately, there are lots of tension and disagreements around, many of which are as the result of thinking too much of ourselves. For example, we have become accustomed to want to get credit for things, and if we are not getting this credit, we tend to disagree with the opinion or the statement since it did not come from us. Sometimes we disagree with a statement because we don't understand it. Most often children or young adults disagree with their parents, and most often this disagreement is because of not absorbing or understanding what the parents are saying. Not because what the parents are saying does not make sense, rather because the comprehension of the subject or the point of view or why they should or should not do a certain action or behavior is not possible for that child or young adult due to his or her level of understanding and experience in life. In such cases, the parents should try to change the level of communication to what would be comprehensible to the youth as much as possible. And the youth should understand that just because they do not see the wisdom behind what their parents are asking them to do or not to do, does not make it discreditable or wrong. It is like radio frequencies. If the broadcasting and receiving stations are not set on the same frequency dial, the reception would not be clear. But this does not mean that there are no messages or information being sent. So if we stop thinking about ourselves as the ultimate level of wisdom and understanding, and accepting to think deeper and try to see and comprehend all angles first, then choosing or electing one point of view, then we are closer to establishing proper frequency levels with our children or partners. This by no means should encourage us to veer off from what is right and accept what is not reasonable, honorable, or correct just to please the other side. We're trying to do our best to bring our level of understanding higher, beyond what is obvious or visible, not to lower it. Youth should realize that if each one of us is supposed not to accept points of view which we don't comprehend, and only accept and agree with what we have experienced firsthand in life by ourselves, then the role of exchange of information and experience and learning in general will diminish, and the learning process would become slow. It would then be like if every time we receive the stick in a continuous running competition, relay running competition that is, we do not accept the distance accomplished by the previous runner of our team and go to the starting line and starting from the beginning again. In this way, the progress in covering the designated distance would be very slow, and we almost get nowhere. You see, in life we must learn when to just accept doing the right thing, even though sometimes we might not understand the wisdom behind it. For instance, if your parents ask you not to go to a certain place, a party for example, and you don't agree, it could be because all you see in your mind from the party is music and friends. But your parents could be seeing beyond that. Drinking excessively, drinking and driving, and other negative elements which could put you in trouble. So in reality, your parents may have no objections in you going to a party and enjoying music and friends. It is probably what is hiding itself in the party that they are worried about, and this only comes with experience. We don't have to drink alcohol till our livers dysfunction to believe the medical reports about the hazards of drinking, do we? If we were to experience everything before accepting it, would be a very cumbersome and difficult life, wouldn't it? So in this case, it would be wise to accept the wishes of your parents and trust in their wisdom, as they are there to protect you and be the extension of your wisdom. You're not supposed to necessarily stick your hand into fire in order to believe it will burn. It makes more sense to accept the fact that fire burns rather than experiencing just everything by ourselves before accepting them. Meditation will give us the relaxation state and clarity needed to think deep and judge well. Conflicts. Conflicts become conflict because of something called me. What does that mean? This me is what makes an issue a conflict. Now, what is that supposed to mean? Imagine you're standing on shores of an ocean, looking at the nature surrounding it. While enjoying the scenery, you notice a landscape far away on the mountain and say, "Wow, what a beautiful sight." Your friend who is looking at the same scenery says, "Ah, it's really beautiful. So far, so good." Then you say, "Do you see that palm tree in the middle of the landscape?" Your friend says, "What palm tree? You mean the windmill on the center of that landscape?" You say, "That in the center is a huge palm tree, not a windmill." And your friend disagrees and says, "No, I think that is a windmill, not a palm tree." And so on and so on. So what has happened here is that a beautiful, peaceful circumstance with no reason for conflict became a subject for conflict. Now, is this conflict the fault of the palm tree or the windmill? No. It became a conflict because the me came into the picture. Each person wants to show that my interpretation of that thing in the center of the landscape is more correct. So it wasn't about the shape in the center of the landscape. It became about who was right, who gets the credit, who scores, who has a better or correct eyesight, imagination, or interpretation, and so on. It was about me, mine, I. Two friends standing on different parts of a mountain see different sceneries. It is silly to argue and say, "This is how the scenery from that mountain looks like," while both are correct and both sceneries do exist. But in order to see what other one is seeing, they both have to move and change places to see the other's point of view. So the whole thing is about moving. As long as we are willing to move and look at things from the other's point of view, we could see why he or she sees what he or she sees. This is the same in everything, including business ventures, negotiations, or human relations. The whole universe is constantly moving and is not still. So we, as part of this universe, must be willing to move with it in harmony in order to avoid conflicts and collisions as the result of standing still or moving in an opposite direction to that of the harmony with movement of the universe. Conflicts can arise among people of all ages. Sometimes you must let it be and walk away, even though you are right. Just explain your point of view or position. Do your best to express how you see it. Then let go if no positive response is offered. This does not necessarily mean that the other side is in disagreement with you. It could also mean he or she does not have the capacity to understand the point of view, no matter how correct. No matter how many times you tell an infant not to touch the hot teacup, it will burn your fingers. She will still do it. This does not mean you're wrong. It just means that she does not understand yet. You explain the same thing a year later, she'll be happy that you informed her of this point. You should concentrate on the result, not who causes the result. If we forget about the personal gain in a partnership, relationship, or a corporate environment, then we could accomplish important tasks, have great families, and successful corporations. When you plant a seed, do you see it grow right away? No. Because although the seed and the soil are both present, but nothing happens until the right season arrives. The rain falls, or the weather changes. The properties were correct, but maturity was not present. So step back and wait. Nature will take its course. Sometimes it is necessary to let go, especially when the other side is not willing to wait for his or her maturity. This is true whether it is in business or dealing with your personal lives. After all, it is not important which of the soil, rain, or the seed gets the credit of growth and creation of this plant. All it matters is that the plant is grown. So, out of a mix, a good thing came about. So conflict could be an opportunity to grow. To remedy conflicts, we could consider the following. 1. Understand the opponent's power. That means do not underestimate the opponent's power. 2. Do not collide with his power. 3. Look at things from his point of view. 4. Extend ki. That is to think and send positive energy. 5. Perform with confidence. The goodness already exists in all of us. Just because it has not bloomed or grown in some of us yet, that does not mean that it is not present within us. Dealing with children. In order to learn how to behave with children, you must understand who and what children are. Children are you in the future. So it is important to prepare them properly so they may have an easier time and a stronger spirit and more tools to deal with life than you had. Certainly you don't want them to have to go through all the same challenges you have already gone through again, do you? They're what makes you live forever and will carry your personality along with their own and pass it along to their children. So if you don't want to have your bad habits or attitudes present in the future too, then you must show your children your good side. So they will take those parts of you with themselves through time that you like. Therefore, you must interact with your children positively at all times, even when you have to scold them. For example, if your child does something wrong, by getting upset and yelling at him that, "I have already told you about this," by your behavior or attitude toward him, he would indeed figure out he has done something wrong. But he would probably do the same thing again in the future. Why? Because he only got to know from you that he did something wrong, but he didn't get to know how to change and why and how not to do that wrong thing anymore. You must help this wrongdoing, the negative behavior, to give its place in the child's subconscious to a positive activity. So he must change negative information in his subconscious to positive information. You should also make sure to never scold your child negatively. For example, never scold your child by pointing your finger at him or her and say things like, "You're a bad boy," or "You're no good," or "What have I given birth to, a human or a rat, snake," or etc., etc. Never to call your child in a serious tone negative names such as bonehead or pighead or garbage or whatever else it may be. Instead, you can scold your child this way, even while pointing your finger at him. "You're a good boy. Good boys never do things like this." Or, "You're my son, and I'm proud of you, so you're too good to do things like this." Then a little later on, you may call your child, sit him or her beside you or in your lap, give him a nice hug, and explain to him or her why such behavior would create harmful results to the others or the child himself. Little by little, this positive input, words or approach, and ways of communicating with your child will give him the assurance that his spirit is high and he is good and that he should expect more from himself. Otherwise, by scolding the children negatively, like what most unaware parents do, the child would take the scolding wrong and little by little forms a negative opinion of himself to the point that he thinks he's no good at all and will begin to do even worse things. When a child runs home with vigor and pride saying, "Dad, I got an A," don't respond by saying things like, "Did you wipe your shoes before coming into the home?" Or, "Just a moment, I'm in the middle of watching such and such game." Or, "Why didn't you put your books or toys together properly?" Instead, you should put everything else on hold and say, "Great, my son. Come here and let's look at your grade cards together." This is extending positive key to your son. When you take your child to the park or start playing a game with your child, you must learn to have your mind and body together. Not to have your body with your child, but your mind busy with your work or other matters. Otherwise, you would get tired soon and would not have the enthusiasm you should have. When you're playing a game with your child, you should really get into the game and begin to enjoy it thoroughly. And your child would feel that you're enjoying it too. And then he would really feel your key and that you are with him. Children don't just want a body around them. They want their parents. And for that, you must have your mind present with your body to leave that effect on your child. Since you, without your mind, are not complete, therefore won't give your child the feeling or the key that he's looking for and needs to grow up properly. Children are what would populate the world in the very near future. So if we aim to have a better world, then we now have a unique opportunity, and that is to teach love, caring, kindness, unselfishness, sense of responsibility, loyalty, integrity, and all other proper things to our children. Then the world would automatically become a more prosperous and better place. And this will not cost much, since the teachings are being done to the children anyhow. All we have to do is to replace all our negative habits and behavior with positive ones, so they will learn only positive ways of thinking and manners. Your children are in this world for a purpose, just like you are. So until they grow up and find their calling and accomplish their tasks, you're supposed to inform them and give them all the tools they need. So when they grow up, they could go through life smoothly. Do you throw a little boat into the wild sea? Of course not. First of all, you will not release a little boat by itself to the ocean. You will build a good-sized ship with all it needs to navigate properly and safely. The sails, oars, rudder, etc. Then you run complete checks to make sure there are no leaks or technical difficulties with the vessel that you will set out to sea. So it is the same with your children. You must oversee them positively and prepare them by teaching them and giving them the proper tools so they eventually become capable to set out to the ocean of life by themselves. Don't just make babies and think you made them so you can do whatever you want with them. First of all, it wasn't your will that made them. If it was, then how come so many who wish to have children cannot? And some who did not want children get them. So it is the will of nature that the children are born. You have responsibilities toward them, since they are entrusted in your hands to be taken care of. You must show a sense of responsibility and stay committed to the proper upbringing of your children. That means also having a hand in the upbringing of the child, meaning learning how to help the other spouse in cleaning, feeding, taking care when the baby is sick, and also playing and amusing the child along with teachings and all other responsibilities. Do not think that you are doing a favor to the child or that the child owes you something now. If you want to have a good representation of yourself in the future, then you better raise your child as best and as positive as you can. Never beat your child, for it will not solve anything, and all it does is make the child resent you and not to allow you to become his friend. The children must feel safe and comfortable with their parents, and in order to achieve that, you must extend positive thoughts to them and become friends with them so they may want to talk to you about all subjects or challenges that they may be facing. This happens when they trust you. They certainly cannot trust you if you beat them. There was a young teacher who was in charge of the 6th grade boys. Very enthusiastic teacher, but would often beat his students. Master Tohe says, before the World War, this caused no problem. But afterwards, with the advent of democratic education, the beatings were not acceptable anymore. Master Tohe decided to go and see the young teacher and said to him, "It is true that you say that you should beat your students because you want to improve them, because you're fond of them. Then, since this is the case, you must be able to beat them just as well when you're not angry. So from now on, when you feel that a child needs a beating, check to make sure that you yourself are not angry. If you aren't, then go ahead. If you strike in anger, your own anger, mixed with the punishment, is transferred to the children and will do them no good at all. If you punish them with love in your heart for their own good, you should be able to do it when you're calm. The students will then understand that you're punishing them with love." Master Tohe writes, he understood, and from that moment on, never beat another student. If he were about to strike a youngster, he would calm himself, listen to what the boy had to say, and the necessity for beating would vanish. Practicing Tohe-style meditation will help you arrive to this calm stage so you may be the right influence to these precious little lives entrusted to you and succeed in preparing them with the perfect navigation equipment to successfully and safely sail their ships across the ocean of life and help creating a better world for everyone. Remember, they're as good as you have shown them to be. If there is any serious and harsh reaction to be shown, it should be shown to yourselves, not to them. How can they be bad? Really, how can they be bad? After all, they are your children. And you are setting a good example for them, aren't you? It would probably not amaze you when we say if you stand up, a taller, stronger person could lift you off the ground if he puts his hands under your armpits and tries to lift you. Because this is apparent to all of us that if more force than our weight is used to lift us, we will be lifted. But I'm sure that you would be amazed if we tell you that by keeping one point in the lower abdomen and concentrating on the one point with all your will, no matter how big or strong, they would be unable to lift you if they try the same way of lifting as before by putting their hands underneath your armpits and push up. This would show you that our powers are not just represented by our muscles. Your total power is when your mind and body is fully coordinated and you're concentrating on the small point in the lower abdomen. Since you're just learning the way to coordinate your mind and body, try to show the person trying to lift you up not to distract you and break your concentration by tickling you or touching their stomach to yours when they try to lift you. Just have them put their hands under your arms when facing you and try lifting first without you keeping the one point. Then, when you are keeping the 1 point, as shown on the insert card that came with this tape. This is a way to show that the power of mind is real and does exist. Since it is not possible to realize the power of mind through its shape, form, odor, or touch. It is like if you are told sugar is sweet, while you have never had anything sweet. So naturally, you would not understand what sweet is until you actually put some of it into your mouth and taste it. Therefore, it should not be used as a circus trick. Through Tohe-style meditation, you can develop your mind into a strong and a more helpful one to be used in sailing through life more smoothly, safely, and more wisely. You may practice ki development and Aikido with mind and body coordinated by joining one of hundreds of martial arts dojos around the world who teach Tohe-style meditation, ki development, and Aikido self-defense with mind and body coordinated. Master Tohe is 10th degree black belt, chief instructor and founder of Ki Society International and Aikido with mind and body coordinated, which its headquarters is located in Tokyo, Japan. This tape is prepared based on my personal experience in life and continuous use and test of the power of mind and its strong role and influences on the daily life, and personal understanding of the teachings of Master Tohe, whom I had the honor of meeting while learning Aikido with mind and body coordinated and ki development with attending University of Lewis and Clark in Portland, Oregon. With my special thanks and appreciation to Chief Instructor of Hawaii Ki Society, Master Seiichi Tabata, whom I had the honor of meeting, and Master Calvin Tabata, Chief Instructor of the Northwest Ki Federation, whom I had the honor of attending Aikido ki development classes under his supervision. Willpower. If you believe, you can do it. What does that mean? Perhaps the following story will give it some meaning. In the old times, in the old Japan, there was this young man who was living in a village, and every morning he had to get up, go through a forest-type path in order to get to the nearest city for work. So as usual, one day he got up, went to his work, passing through that forest, and in the afternoon, on the way back, when it was kind of dark, but not quite yet, as he was going through the forest, going toward his village, all of a sudden, he felt a big, huge tiger on the left side. He pulled his bow and arrow that he was carrying with him, put the arrow into the bow, pulled it as tight as he could, as high as he could, with all his might and will, aimed at what he had seen and let go to the tiger. Didn't even wait to see what had happened, just escaped afterwards. The next day, he gets up and, as usual, goes through the forest and goes to the city nearby and does his work. In the afternoon, he's coming back and he decides to find where he had thrown that arrow to see what had happened. Sure enough, he finds the spot that he had thrown the arrow. Wow, he figures, how could that be true? What he could see was not a tiger laying there, a big, huge, humongous rock with the stripes across it, and his arrow stuck right into it all the way. The message in this story is that if you believe strong enough, amazing things could happen. Your willpower can even pass through stones if you wish it strong enough with all your might. And that's how it is in life too. There are times that we need to have that strong willpower, and in order to get a job done or to get where you want to go, you must have that concentrated, humongous power with all your might and a strong belief. Because if you believe, you can do it. Everyone should realize the natural abilities that we all have enable us to pass successfully through this life. The principles of life energy, key, lie in bringing to light man's natural strength and his hidden natural abilities. It is not important how difficult it is. It's important that it's possible. Thank you, and I hope the seed offered to you today will grow in you, and that you would be able to help others to cultivate and grow it within themselves as well.